Rebecca, and I'm going to show you how I clean our 2-foot tank that has 5 gold rams in it, keeping it simple for a beginner fish keeper. So the supplies you're going to need is chlorine neutralizer. I really like this brand because it's concentrated for the price. You don't have to pay $1 million if you've got a lot of tanks. You're going to need a siphon. Probably not something this big, but this is what we have because we have bigger tanks, so this works anyway. Probably something in between this one and this one. And then you need a bucket. It doesn't matter about the bucket that you empty into, but it matters about the bucket that you fill up with the water that's going back in. You're also going to need a sponge to clean your glass with, and you keep this sponge as a special sponge just for your fish tanks. Basically, you don't want any chemicals like detergents or fragrances going into your tank, so that applies for don't just put hand cream on and then touch your water. So your hands, just wash them with soap, rinse them really well with water. This is a brand new sponge because I can't find my sponge and I've just rinsed it in water because sometimes sponges come with chemicals in them. So I just gave it a really good rinse under tap water, and we're going to clean our glass with this. So there's a few things we're going to do when we clean our tank. We're going to clean the glass, we're going to rinse the sponges in the filter, and we are going to change the water just a little bit, and we are going to suck the gravel. Well, that's what the siphon is for, so that gets all the fish poo out of the gravel, because if you just change the water and you leave the fish poo in there, then the poo is creating nitrites and which turns into nitrates, and then that's what could kill your fish. So if you ever see foamy water, that's really bad. That means you urgently need to change the water, you urgently need to do the filters, and you urgently need to vacuum the gravel. And you'll probably find that all those things will be quite dirty. It's also an indicator if you have a lot of algae in your tank, because we have tanks that had a lot of algae when there was no sunlight. That was due to high nitrates, which is because we hadn't cleaned the fish tank enough. So the first thing I'm going to do is get the siphon going, and you put your siphon in, make sure it's under the water, and then you find the other end. And some of them have hand pumps where you can pump it and it will come down, and sometimes if your tank is high enough you could just scoop the water and that will start the siphon. But we're going to suck on the end. I'm going to suck really hard until you see the water come down over here. Once it gets to about here, you can stop sucking and get the end into your bucket. Here we go. Because a mouthful of fishy water is not fun. Here it goes. It'll start going into your bucket. Keep an eye on your bucket, because sometimes you can get excited about vacuuming the gravel, you forget to look at your bucket and it starts overflowing. So keep an eye on it. As you're sucking the gravel, have a look at how full your bucket is. So to siphon the gravel, you just keep your siphon upright and you put it in the gravel in an up and down motion. You put it on the gravel, wait for all the poo to come up, and then you pick it up and you put it down again. And you just keep going through your tank systematically, going through the gravel, and you keep sucking and going over areas until no more poo comes out. So you can see I've gone over the same area, and now there's a little bit of stuff coming out, but not too much. So we're keeping an eye on our bucket to see how full it is. It nearly needs to be empty, and so you just put your finger over it and you can put that end into the tank. Make sure you balance it there so it doesn't fly out, otherwise you'll have water everywhere. Balance it there, and then you can go empty your bucket. To restart your siphon, when you come back, you just put your finger back over the end again, and then you can just pull it out and put it back into your bucket, and off it goes. And this just saves you from having to suck on the end of it and risk fish water in your mouth, which is not nice. Once you have siphoned most of your tank, and then I've gotten to the left hand side of the tank where I have a lot of ornaments and plants, it's a good idea to move the ornaments and siphon underneath it, because it often collects underneath things like that. You don't always have to move your plants that are planted into the gravel, because they like to feed on the fishy poo that's underneath there. You can, or you can leave them, do what you like, but it's a good idea to move your ornaments and then do under there. And while we're moving things around, I'm just going to take this piece of Lego out that the girls have put in there. If you have toddlers, you might want to watch them, because they throw random things into your tanks. Yeah, so there's that. You can see in this shot as well that there is that ceramic ring, which is biological filtration from another tank that they have gone and put in the tank. Anyway, we're going to put our finger over here and we're going to empty another bucket, and we're going to come back and get it going again. Finish siphoning, I forgot to film this, but you just pull the siphon out of the water, and then all the water that's in the tube will go into your bucket. We have a really long tube, so I need to make sure I have to lift this all the way until all the water goes into the bucket. Okay, so we're all finished with our siphon. I emptied all the water out of the tube into the buckets. And next we are going to do our glass. So I just use this side, and I come along, and I just scrub it. Even if it looks really clean, I do it anyway, and you'll feel like you'll feel the gunge on there. So when you're cleaning the inside, just be careful not to scrub too vigorously, because that's going to move the water a lot and it's going to scare your fish. So I go a bit more vigorously on top where there's no water, and then a little bit slower inside, but you still want to be able to give it a bit of a scrub, especially if you have algae on there. So just be aware that that can scare your fish. Make sure you do the back, the front, right down into the gravel, because sometimes you get a bit of algae there. But as I said, just try not to stress your fish out while you're doing it. Next, we're going to take the filter out, and we're going to clean the sponges, and then we're going to refill the tank, and that's it. Alright, so sponges, you have biological, which will be little beads, or in our bigger tanks we have these, which are clay tubes, or you might have rock looking things, that is biological media. And you have bacteria, good bacteria that lives on here, that turns the nitrite into nitrate. Nitrate is not as bad for fish as nitrite. So to keep these little fellas alive, we have to not put chlorinated water on them. So what we're going to do is just take the sponge off the top, and you can rinse these in your fishy water in your bucket. So you could take them out if they're really dirty, or I'm just going to give them a shake around in there. And then the sponge, you can either do under the tap or your hose on the spray into chlorinated, with chlorinated water, or you can also wash this out in your fishy water. Keep your last bucket, because this can be biological or physical. I like to use these as just physical, especially if they're really, really dirty. I'll put the hose on there, because it's better for this to be clean than it is for it to have beneficial bacteria in my opinion. That's how I like to do it. I find that works better for me if it's extra dirty. These are not very dirty, so I'm going to rinse them in the fishy water because they're pretty much clean. So it's as simple as just squeezing them out in your fishy water. You can wait a little while until all the debris settles on the bottom, so you've got a bit of cleaner water up the top. But as I said, these are pretty clean, so it doesn't matter. So if that water was chlorinated clean water, you would see brown stuff coming out. And then we just give the biological a little shake in there because it wasn't very dirty. We want to keep the little bacteria alive, so we're using our fishy water. So we just do both of those like that. It's nice, simple, easy. So now that's done, we're just going to put the filter back together and we're going to pop it back in the tank. Easy peasy. If you want to, there's a bit of gunge in this pipe. You could get your very fine brush and get rid of that. It's a bit hard to see. There's a little bit of gunge in there, but I'm not going to worry about it. It sometimes builds up in here. So you can wash all in there as well with chlorinated water is fine. Clean up my mess. I'm going to put my ornaments and my plants back. Then we're going to fill it up with water. Fill up your tank, you can use your special bucket that you're only going to use for filling the tank, which is clean, it's got no fragrances in it, or you can use your hose. Either way, I like to put the chlorine neutralizer in first. You can either put the chlorine neutralizer directly into your tank and then put your hose in and just start filling it up, or you could fill even if you're going to use the hose, I use a small container. I put the right amount of neutralizer for the entire tank or the half of the tank, and then I put that in first and then start the hose. You could put it in your first bucket of water that you're going to put in, but do it first because the chlorine will burn their gills. So you need to do the chlorine neutralizer first. But then once it's in the water, it instantly neutralizes any new water that comes in after that. If you tip your chlorine neutralizer directly into the tank, make sure you don't put it directly onto a fish. So that's why you could put it in a bucket with a bit of water first, so it's diluted before you're putting it in. I will put it in the corner where they're not. It's pretty easy. Read the instructions on your chlorine neutralizer bottle. There's always different dosages. I like this dosage, well this brand, because the dosage is really small. So 1 ml does 40 litres. A 2-foot tank is normally 50 litres, but you only have half, so you're doing around 25 litres. It won't hurt to put the full mill in because you can overdose, but that won't overdose this tank. So I just put 1 ml in for the 40 litres, even though we're doing 25. So inside here, that small ring is the 1 ml, and I bought a big one because we've got so many tanks. I think this was like $30, and a small one is often $30, so it pays to get a big one if you've got a lot of tanks. If you've got one tank and you're going to be cleaning it once a month, just get a small bottle. So I'm going to tip in the 1 ml. Yep. And then I'm going to pour it in this corner where the fish are not. I think they're in the back corner. Done. That's it. And then I'm going to get the hose and I'm going to turn it on very slowly. So I've wedged my hose, I'll show you a close-up in a minute. Make sure it doesn't come out, and make sure you keep an eye on it, because you might go watch some TV or something like that, or get distracted and your tank's overflowing. We're going to fill it up to, I like around there. Sometimes I put a mark on there with a whiteboard pen, and that way I can rub it off the glass. Even permanent marker does rub off the glass. So sometimes I put a mark where I want to fill it up to and where I like to empty it to. Today I just emptied it until the gravel was clean. So, you know, if you do it once a month, you're going to have about 3 buckets or about half. I wouldn't empty more than half at a time. A lot of people suggest just 25%, like 1 bucket. So if you do it weekly, just do 1 bucket. But I do until the gravel's clean. And so this is how much I've turned it on, just a bit of a dribble. And that way you're not going to shock your fish temperature wise. These are tropical fish with a heater. That way as it fills up, it's just going to be a similar temperature. We're not going to be 4 degrees different or something like that. Sometimes we do it a bit faster, but it's a risk if you go too crazy with filling it up too quickly. That's just what will happen. The fish will get shocked because of the temperature difference. So we're just going to leave that on now. Keep an eye on it, hopefully. And we're going to fill it up to about here is good, because you get a lot of evaporation. So over a month you're going to lose a bit of water. Depends how often you're going to clean it. So I finished cleaning the tank. I've filled it back up to about here. You don't, there's this side thing here, you don't want to fill it too much. Just a couple of centimeters is fine. And we've got one more job left to do, and we're just going to clean the front of the glass so you can see your nice clean fishies. I would never recommend using a spray and wipe, because it'd be very easy for the spray to go into the top of your water as you're spraying, because it kind of mists everywhere. You don't want to do that. You're just going to use plain water. You can use your fish tank water, it's fine. You can use a bit of tap water, and then we're going to buff it out with a cloth, just a microfiber cloth. So I just wet it all down, give it a scrub. Still got a bit of leaves hanging around here. Okay. And dry it off. We'll put our lid back on. And you could probably give that a clean too if you want to, ours is pretty dusty. And let's have a look at our nice clean fish tank and our fishies. So the fish are a little bit stressed after having their tank clean, that's why they are hiding in the corner. We've got 3 here, and there are 2 hiding behind the heater there. So that was probably also from cleaning the front of the glass a little bit vigorously, so they'll be okay, but just be aware that they can get a little bit scared. So we'll have a look at them after the tank is settled a bit and see if they've come out.